table at the your far left. This is a picture, I don't know who knows Brooklyn very well, of an apartment complex in Bed-Stuy. Okay, and if you know the building, and you know the street it's on, you say, oh, that's 110 Chauncey, right? Does anybody know Bed-Stuy that well? This is a building on Chauncey, looks just like the building. There's a little bit of a disconnect here because the corner store is actually diagonally across the street, and it was kind of hard for the artist to do that. She drew this picture, and it's, I think, very impressive. It's part of our art collection. Occasionally we'll have an art exhibit. She also did another picture. Now, this child was 12 years old, and I think the first picture was very impressive for 12 years old. And then she did this picture. Now, this is the same 12-year-old child, okay? And we're looking at it, and luckily we kept our mouths shut. We didn't say, gee, that's pretty childish for the girl who just did the apartment building. But we listened. By not talking, we could listen, and she said, my dad taught me how to do this. When we were visiting, he showed me how to draw the lines with a pen or pencil, and then you fill them in to make a design. And the reason this picture is in our art exhibit is to show what the child is thinking about a lot. We did not prep her, draw a picture that reminds you of your dad, okay? It was just, here are some crayons, here's some pencils, here's some colored pencils, here's some paper. You want to draw something? And that's what we do. We don't tell the children, we don't hint at what they ought to do. Well, gee, you do some beautiful flowers. Why don't you put some sunshine or a butterfly or a bird? Why don't you do, this looks like a very stormy picture. Why don't you draw a happy picture? No, sometimes they draw happy pictures. One of the pictures in the back is of a vacation on a beach, and you see the beach umbrella, and you see the water, and you see this huge sunshine. They draw happy pictures. This, I think, is the most happy picture, because it's about the person we don't mention, we don't talk about, but who's always on her mind. This is a different child. This child was 11 years old. And when people look at the picture or take pictures of it, they cut out the empty space. But the empty space is the most important part of this picture. And luckily, I had an intern with me, and the intern didn't say anything like, gee, you've got all that empty space, why don't you fill it up with some more flowers? This is what she did. This is a child who had been abused in foster care, and she walked around with her chin on her chest, and she would not answer you, she won't talk to people. And finally we said to her, why don't you talk to people? Why don't you talk? I don't like people. She had been living in kinship foster care with a cousin who would yell at her and say, you're lucky I'm keeping you. Nobody else wants you. The woman was very heavy-handed. This child's two brothers were there. She would beat the children. Sometimes she would get so frustrated by the children that she would pull a knife on them and throw them out of the house. And the two boys were found walking around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning by the police. What are you doing? Well, we can't go home because the cousin said we can't go home, and she has a knife. So that was the beginning of the foster care experience. The case manager in the foster care agency, who was very, very busy, never notified the father that the child had been removed from foster care with the cousin, could not find a suitable relative to place the child with. Well, of course, she never asked the child because the child wasn't talking. And the father has a wife, and actually for several years in her early life, this child had lived with the father and his wife. So she knew the other children, she knew the family. but nobody bothered to say, oh, as long as she's not in foster care, as long as she needs to go to foster care and they won't leave her with the cousin anymore, she could go and stay with the wife, right? Who has other children in the house and is a very nice lady. We came on the scene because we were going to do something with several children in the Bronx, and we went to the house to find this little girl. And the cousin, of course, lied. You're not going to say, well, ACS took the child away from me because I was so rotten. No. Oh, well, she's away. She's a visiting relative. She's this, she's that, she's the other thing. But the social worker was very persistent, made several home visits, and finally the cousin said, she's not here, she's in foster care. And this child had been placed with a family, a foster family, that were strangers to her. Even though she had many relatives, she had aunts and uncles and half-siblings, and the father's wife was available. But the agency didn't even know about these people or were too busy. And at the time we came on the scene, they were filling out the papers for the child to be able to move to New Jersey because the family was moving to New Jersey. So that was the beginning of the end for the family connection. We were able to do advocacy, which turns out to be one of the main things we do, and we were able to negotiate bringing that child to the family. Now this is the picture she drew. We interpret this that she's the little flower in the middle of this, very powerless, in the middle of this huge space with no strength and no power and very little color or brightness to her. This is a little girl who walked around with the chin on the chest saying, I don't like people. Now that was a number of years ago. Tomorrow is her 15th birthday. She's a different child now. She's grown a little taller, she's filled out, she's doing well in school. She's very happily living with her father's wife, and the other children are in the house, and her half-sister. This is the little girl that you're going to see in the film. This is the little girl we interviewed. This is Shanice did this when she was 11. She's a totally different person now. She's been to visit her father. She hears from him. She's very supported by the family she's with, and she's very supported by her father. And I don't know if they edited the film or not, but at one place she talks about how much it means to her when she hears from him and when he remembers her birthday. Okay. And so that she's getting support from the family she's with and from her father. This is not a perfect family. There are other people in the larger family who have been arrested or who are selling drugs or this or that, but the home she's living in is very, very nice. Children are well fed, they're well dressed, the home is warm and comfortable. She goes to school, she has a lot of support. Things have turned out well for her. Now, we originally thought we would work with children and families. We find a great deal of what we do is advocacy. We're talking about the fact that these are real children, they have real feelings, they exist, they're not non-existent, they are a pariah class in our society, and that's why we don't track them, we don't provide sufficient services for them, we don't recognize the fact that they have feelings, and that the caregivers may also have feelings. The caregiver will say, he doesn't need his dad is no good. Okay? And for a child, dad is everything. He made some mistakes, but he loves the child, he wants the child to turn out well, he can have a very strong positive influence on the child. We also, we do not provide enough services, mental health services on the level these families need and accept. And hopefully we're filling a little space in the gap. And I brought the pictures because the pictures speak. There are more pictures back there. You're going to hear from this young lady very shortly, and if you have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.